Cathy's father Robert and her sister Annette overjoyed as they left the courtroom, finally getting the justice they sought for Cathy.
We did it! We did it! Justice for Cathy! We did it!
On the winter day of February 19, 1982, around 5 p.m., police officers responded to the Krauseneck home at 33 Del Rio Drive in Brighton, New York, after a neighbor called 911. The officers were ultimately led into the master bedroom of the family's home, where they found a grisly scene. Cathy Krauseneck, the victim of a single blow to the head with an axe, was lying dead on her bed. What had led to the gruesome killing of this young woman? Was it someone she knew, or was it a random robbery gone wrong? Welcome back to Mysterious Hook, where we shed light on high-profile and under-the-radar cases across the country. I'm Matt, and today we are looking at a 40-year-old cold case finally solved in 2022. If you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button and press the notification bell below. Let's dive right into this mystery without any further ado. Today's story takes place in Brighton, New York. Brighton is a lovely suburban town located in Monroe County, New York, just near the southeastern border of the city of Rochester. In 1952, Cathy Schlosser was born to a working-class family in Mount Clemens, Michigan. Cathy, as she preferred to be called, grew up with 6 siblings. She was described as a vivacious and bubbly blonde who was well-liked at her Michigan high school. In that same high school, she met a boy who would change the course of her life, James Krauseneck, a shy, pleasant, and athletic boy who came from a prominent family in the same town. James was just a year older than her. However, it was not high school where they became sweethearts. The spark appeared when both attended Western Michigan University. The two fell in love despite the evident differences between their nature and their family status. In May 1974, the couple got married in a church in Mount Clemens. In 1975, Cathy, with a bachelor's degree, and James, who now had a master's degree in hand, moved to Fort Collins, Colorado. There, James would begin studying for his PhD at Colorado State. Although Cathy suffered a miscarriage shortly after moving, she would give birth to the couple's only child, Sarah, a few years later. Jim finished his doctoral dissertation and began teaching at Lynchburg College in Virginia. He was known as Dr. Krauseneck at Lynchburg, although he had never actually received his doctoral degree. His dissertation had been returned for revisions, and Jim never bothered to resubmit his work. Cathy urged him to find a more lucrative line of work in order to provide a better lifestyle for the family, yet he was very reluctant to do so, most likely because he knew he didn't have the credentials needed. Desperate, he pressed for a salary increase, but his request was denied. Finally, he accepted the role of economist at Kodak and became part of the Kodak family in Kodak's heyday, when it employed about 60,000 people. With the new high-paying job and some financial help from James's parents, the Krausenecks bought a new home on Del Rio Drive in the Rochester suburb of Brighton, New York, near the Kodak headquarters. After moving to the new house, Cathy enrolled Sarah in Queen of Peace Nursery School near their home and made a few friends there. She also enrolled Sarah in dance class. Although Cathy felt somewhat isolated at home during James's long work hours and Sarah's classes, she never complained. By early 1982, they had all the makings of the American dream: an adorable 3-year-old daughter, Sarah, a well-maintained house in the suburbs, and James's new high-paying job as an economist at Eastman Kodak. Nonetheless, trouble was still looming over their heads. Kodak officials were skeptical about James's PhD as he delayed providing evidence of the degree he received. This, combined with other work pressure, made him distant from home. Cathy told friends that he would often come home from work angry and short-tempered. The couple had been having troubles for some time. Cathy was reportedly distraught because he lied about finishing his PhD. This had been the cause of much of the turmoil in their relationship. She had even discussed taking Sarah and going back to their hometown. However, No domestic violence was ever reported. Sadly, tragedy would soon strike the Krauseneck family. On the morning of February 19th, 1982, just 6 months after moving into the new house, officers of the Brighton Police Department responded to a 911 call made. James Krauseneck came back home from his work to find his 29-year-old wife, Cathy's lifeless body huddled in bed in a bedroom upstairs, while their 3.5-year-old daughter, Sarah, stared out of the window. After entering the house, the officers stepped into a gruesome crime scene in the master bedroom. Cathy was lying in a pool of blood in her own bed with a long-handled axe embedded in her skull. The murder weapon was taken from the couple's garage, which was unlocked. Sarah was home with her mother all day, but wasn't harmed in any way. When police questioned James about his whereabouts that day, he explained that his wife and daughter were sleeping peacefully when he left for work at around 6:30 a.m. that morning. He stated that he returned home at 5 p.m. Upon discovering his wife's body, he claimed he grabbed his daughter and got out of the house, running to a neighbor's house to call for help. When young Sarah was questioned, she said she saw a bad man, but her father refused to let her talk to the investigators any further. Not many clues were left at the crime scene. There were signs of a burglary, but the investigators felt that there was something off about the scene. A window was discovered broken. Some silver and jewelry were neatly arranged both upstairs and downstairs, as if left behind by the burglar. On the dining room floor, 2 candelabra and a silver tea set had been placed upright near a plastic bag. A screwdriver was found lying on the stairs. Cathy's purse lay in the dining room with the contents scattered. The family dog had been locked away in the basement of the home. Interestingly, no items were stolen from the house, leading the investigators to believe that the burglary was staged. The medical examiner ruled that Cathy died from a single axe blow to the head and the brain while Cathy had been asleep. The handle of the axe had been wiped clean. The time of death was believed to be between 6:55 a.m. and 8:55 a.m., which ruled out Cathy's husband James as a suspect. This case became known in the media as the Brighton axe murder. In the initial investigation, one suspect considered by investigators was the convicted killer and sex offender Ed Larrabee, who lived near the couple's home at the time. In fact, in 2014, when he was in prison for an unrelated murder, Larrabee confessed to killing Cathy Krauseneck. However, the details he shared weren't consistent with the evidence. He said the murder occurred during the summer of 1981, when, in reality, it was the winter of 1982. Apparently, Larrabee was a reputed serial confessor who falsely confessed to several crimes that he did not commit in order to gain notoriety. Some of the supposed victims he had claimed to have murdered were, in fact, still alive. Investigators were short of physical or circumstantial evidence to link anyone to the crime. Despite tireless efforts from the investigators, the Brighton axe murder remained unsolved for many years. Just a day after Cathy's passing, James went back to Mount Clemens with Sarah without even informing Sarah's family. Sarah would not have any contact with her maternal family in the following years. 4 years after the gruesome murder, in 1986, James remarried. However, it only lasted 9 months. Although James claimed that he had remarried in order for Sarah to have a mother, his second wife believed that James had ended the marriage after he felt a close bond developing between his new wife and Sarah. As the 1990s progressed, James remarried twice. After he had moved to Washington, he joined a subsidiary of Weyerhaeuser. He climbed the corporate ladder and worked in California and Georgia before he was promoted to vice president of sales at the company's headquarters in Washington. Even though James had an early divorce from his third wife, he and his fourth wife, Sharon, seemed to have a good marriage and led a luxurious life. They bought a 4-bedroom French country house in Gig Harbor near Tacoma. Meanwhile, Sarah moved to Texas and started her own family. However, she was always in close contact with her father and stepmother. As years passed, not much progress was made in the case until District Attorney Sandra Dorley and her team started taking a closer look in 2015. They began rummaging for evidence that might have been missed previously. Amongst the evidence was a thin, blue fiber made of glass that came from a shattered window of the house. Dorley tried to match it to a previously untested blue knee sock found in the house. After extensive testing yielded no DNA from a source outside of the home, the idea of an outside killer was pretty much blown out of the water. Sandra and her team zeroed in on one possible suspect, Cathy's husband, James. Yet they could not just charge him based on circumstantial evidence. And there was one more problem. The time of Cathy's death put him outside of his house at the time of the murder, and therefore ruled him out as a suspect. However, Dorley and her team weren't ready to let him off the hook that easily. They then contacted renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, who has previously been integral in many high-profile cases. After studying all of the pertinent documents from the case, including police reports, autopsy reports, photographs, and other evidence, Baden concluded that Cathy died before James left for work that morning. He explained that, contrary to what the original medical examiner had reported, he believed the time of death to have been earlier, due to partially digested food in her stomach and the stage of rigor mortis that her body was in. The original examiner had observed rigor mortis to have set in the evening of the crime. Baden stated that it takes a minimum of 12 hours for a body to reach the level of rigor mortis observed. Hence, he opined that the murder must have occurred between 9 p.m. the previous evening and 3 or 4 a.m. on the morning of the crime. In 2019, based on Dr. Baden's analysis along with their other evidence, James Krauseneck was arrested and charged with his wife's murder. His trial began in August 2022. The defense tried to point out that all the evidence was circumstantial and that Cathy could have been a victim of Larrabee, who had already passed away. The prosecutors argued that there was no evidence of an intruder, the robbery was staged, and James was the only person who could have killed his wife, considering their young daughter was unharmed despite being present at the scene. The jury sided with the prosecution. James Krauseneck, who was now 70 years old, was convicted of second-degree murder for the death of his wife, Cathy, in 1982. 41-year-old Sarah, however, stood by her father and did not believe her father had anything to do with her mother's murder. On the other hand, after 40 years of mourning, Cathy's family feels relieved to see that justice has been served. Cathy Krauseneck's sister, Annette Schlosser, when asked about how the last 40 years have gone, told Spectrum News that their mother had died without knowing who her daughter's killer was. Annette was quoted saying, "We were living in hell," and she believed that because who could do that to her daughter? Cathy's 95-year-old father, however, was present in the court to witness James being held accountable for his daughter's horrific murder. The only thing the Schlosser family now wants is to reunite with Cathy's daughter, as they have had no contact with her in years. They stated, "We hope they can heal together from this tragic incident." James Krauseneck will be sentenced on November 7th in front of New York State Supreme Court Justice Charles Schiano. Do you trust Dr. Baden's conclusion, or is it all just circumstantial evidence? Let us know in the comments section if you have any insights into this tragic case. Thanks for joining us for today's story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating true crime stories like this. Stay tuned for more episodes. Stay safe, friends. Until next time.